Why hello there, Knife Still here. I hope this video finds you well. Today I am bringing you a summary of a knife I've done a full review on. The full review will be linked down in the description should you care to see the longer version with the full specs and everything like that. This being the summary is going to be much shorter. Now, you see, I thought I did the summary on this knife, but I was looking through, and unless I'm completely blind, which is a distinct possibility, that was my fault, I didn't, so I'm doing one now. I'll probably find out. Point out if I did do one. I don't think I did, but whatever. This is the WE Knives Highfin XL. There is a smaller variant of this knife. This is a Gavco design. Gavco, Mike Gavick, I think his name is? Yeah. He's a custom maker. I don't know a whole lot about his work, so other than the fact that his knives are made or named after sharks, and, well, the Highfin is not a shark, but it's keeping the same kind of aquatic theme, I guess. I think this is technically based off of his, what, Nurse or Mako? One of his variants. I think it might be the Mako. Customs. Obviously not a custom, this is a WE production model. And this is going to be a relatively shorter video because, well, honestly, it's a pretty simple, straightforward knife, though there is some very interesting and impressive stuff about it. First of all, it is in CPM 20CV, which you can see there, and while Gavco's logo is on there, and I prefer not to see that, I admit I like WE because they have such clean presentations usually, putting their logo on the pivot, sometimes the pocket clip, but usually the pivot, and usually just having a tiny font for the steel. They did put the Gavco logo on there for the collaboration, which is, I mean, occasionally they do that, that's fine. They did it with, like, the Guthrie that I reviewed, that is Jason Guthrie design, based on his Scout custom. Same thing here. This particular variant has a, I think they call it a gray polished blade, which I think is really, really attractive. And of course, you can see the bronze anodization on polished anodization on the handle. This is what I consider to be the best looking variant of this knife. They have recently or just come out with some new variants of this knife. In fact, they put a gray polish on the handle, and I think it's just a plain blade. Also pretty nice. The blade itself is a slightly modified sheep's foot blade with a poon on the front end that actually works quite well. This is a pretty ergonomic design. I've heard that some of Gavco knives designs aren't super ergonomic. I mean, you look at it, it's kind of doing some weird things here, right? His designs tend to be angular and have some just weird positions for certain things like that, it seems. Not all of them I've heard are super ergonomic. This one is pretty darn comfortable, though. Actually, really comfortable. I will say that it's a very comfortable knife, and it just sort of works. It's a good knife. It's got WE's thin geometry, plus it's hollow ground, so it's even a bit thinner, or I should say it stays a bit thinner than even normal. It cuts really well. It's super utilitarian blade shape. Great plunge grind. The sharpening choil is, of course, a huge finger choil, but even without that, they still did the smart thing and did my favorite thing and used the tang nub that not only can catch your finger if you go up high enough to disengage. Of course, you can go a little bit lower on this one. I will say that I went real low earlier, and I caught myself. If you look right here, I have a little bit of cut because it got me earlier when I was before the video started. Well, a little while back, but the tang nub's not even necessarily on this one, but they still did it, and they still put the stop pin in a good position, even though they have a huge sharpening or finger choil and good plunge grind. Good details, good decisions made, right? The handle is just a titanium frame lock, though it is, of course, got the polish on it, and what's nice is on the edges here, it's got a sort of a stonewash finish. You can see it right there. That really is just a nice counterpoint, in my opinion, to the polished face of this thing, which is also textured with this diamond pattern texturing. It's not super aggressive. It's not aggressive at all, but the polishing and the finishing they've done to this thing has taken it down to really being quite smooth. In fact, the pocket clip has a flat underneath it, so it's not directly on that. You can see it kind of right there. But even if it was directly on this, it probably wouldn't tear up your pants. It's super soft. I can't say that's necessarily the case for every single variant of the knife, because they're obviously not all polished anodized, but this one probably wouldn't have a problem either way. It is thumb stud actuation only. The custom had a opening hole, actuation, aperture, whatever you want to call it. And I've seen some people modify these things with the holes, putting, an angular hole in there. They look really good. I have to say I'm tempted to have it done to mine, but at the same time, it's really unnecessary because these thumb studs are really, really good. It is on bearings and has some of that WE special sauce that they've been doing more recently in the last year or so, maybe two, is it pushing into 2 years now, where they used to have pretty tight action. Now their actions tend to be pretty darn luxuriously smooth, and this one is just barely a shake shut. It is centered. It is no play, rock solid, great stuff there. Simple standoff. There is no lanyard hole for people who like that, I suppose. That is something worth mentioning. And the pocket clip cannot be reversed, but it is a milled titanium pocket clip. Very simple, straightforward pocket clip, but done with all the right stuff. They've not just chamfered, but they've really rounded and softened it nicely. And unlike a lot of stuff that WE does, there's no flat on the end of this one, so it works pretty darn well. It's a great pocket clip. It's medium depth, not super deep, but it works really well in and out of the pocket. It is a little bit slick because of the polish, but I haven't had too much issue with it. Decent amount of weight reduction as well. I already mentioned the standoff, so that's not really something that needs to be addressed. The WE logo is there and only there on the pivot. Honestly, this is a great knife. There's, like I said, there is a smaller variant with a 3-inch blade. This is a 3.5-inch blade and 8.25 inches overall, so it's a pretty standard full-size knife. Also, even though the lock bar doesn't stick out too much, it's been textured really nicely and chamfered really deep, and it's super easy to access and actuate. So lock bar is access and function is really, really good and comfortable. And I already mentioned the ergos. Oh, I didn't mention that it is slightly contoured titanium. The ergo is very comfortable in the hand. I will say that if you choke up like this and you go forward into the choke up position, you can start feeling how thin the blade actually gets, which can be a little bit uncomfortable, so I tend to be back here. But if I'm actually go up here, weirdly enough, even though my finger sort of adjusts forward, it's super comfortable. I guess it's just because of the angles that it change. It really works in multiple different grip positions, and honestly, I don't know if there is a particularly uncomfortable grip on this knife. Honestly, it's really good all around. So the only thing that I can say that would be a little bit of a negative is the price tag. It is, of course, a premium knife. WE makes premium knives, but this is a $300 knife, and for, a titanium frame lock on bearings in 20CV, you can get much, much cheaper. Now, that said, it is a WE, so it's going to be higher quality than some of the other ones that you might be able to get out there. In general, like the fit and finish and some of the stuff should be a bit higher most of the time on WEs than, say, Kubi. I love Kubi, but typically you're going to find a little bit more refinement in a WE. You are, not necessarily all the time. Like WE has a tendency to leave their lock bar sharp, which they did here, but you don't interact with it. It's not a big deal. But, it's a little bit sharper than it needs to be. They could put a chamfer on it, but whatever. But as I said, you're definitely getting from one of the higher tier companies that's going to in the premium realm, so you're going to reflect that. Plus, it is a collab with a designer, so that also adds more money to it. And in this case, of course, this particular variant has this beautiful polish and finish applied to it, which I personally think brings this to right about where it, like, I wouldn't be happy with this thing any higher. In fact, I reviewed the Epaulette, which is also a Gavco design, that was polished handle and just a plain blade, and said that one was about the same price as this, and that one felt a little overpriced. This knife not only feels like it's a slightly better knife, just in general, not that the other one was bad, it was very good, it was still WE, but I do feel like this one with the anodization and just the level of execution on that, the whole thing, feels like it justifies the price tag just barely. It's right on the edge. If they were to crank this thing up $20, I don't think I could say it's recommendable, being just a, titanium frame lock. But for what it is and as good as it is, yeah, it's a recommendable knife. Can you find cheaper? Sure, but not that it's doing, well, this. At least not that I know of right now. Though companies have been stepping up their game, so that's a good thing. In some areas. Some areas, not so much. But I think that'll cover everything. So I'm going to end things here, say thank you very much for watching. Consider leaving a like and possibly subscribing to the channel for more. Hopefully I'll see you again. Have a great day.